So as you all remember, Halloween 2018 came out a few years ago, and it really lit a fire under not only the Halloween franchise, but also horror in general. It was easily the highest grossing movie of the franchise, garnering $250 million worldwide, completely eclipsing every other movie that came before it. The buzz was bigger than ever. This great marketing campaign for not one, but two movies to follow: Halloween Kills, Halloween Ends, and then we were hit with the unthinkable, the pandemic. Even though there was a promising test screening that kept the wind in the sails, the pandemic put a massive damper on the world and the franchise because it pushed Halloween Kills back a year, forcing Blumhouse to shift their marketing campaign, even putting it on streaming. So finally, the movie came out to vastly mixed reviews compared to the applauded Halloween 2018, for the most part. I enjoyed the movie for a variety of reasons, which we are going to go into this special. But like it or not, this movie put some concern in this trilogy, and setting things forward to Halloween Ends, the road ahead might be a little skittish. But Halloween Ends is coming out, no matter what. So anyway, without further ado, I give you Halloween Kills Revisited.
You want your mask? Come and get it! You want to fucking kill someone? Take me!
What's up, guys? Welcome to Halloween Kills Revisited. So looking forward to getting into this. I promised you a full revisited review after a few months, after the movie has settled. This is about the same time frame that I waited for Halloween 2018. If you remember back from that review, my thoughts on that movie settled in quite a bit. I wasn't as gaga over the movie. It literally went from, I think, the number 2 position all the way to number 7. It might even be like number 8 now in my ranking. But like I promised, we're gonna do the same thing with Kills. And I'm gonna go ahead and be upfront with you guys right now. Last night I watched it again. This might be the 8th or 9th time I've watched the movie. I like it even more. And I'm looking forward to diving into the reasons why I like this movie even more. Part of the reason is the fan divide. That's a big point of discussion for this special. I think more than any other Halloween movie ever, this movie divided fans quite a bit. Some calling it the best Halloween movie since the first, while the others call it even worse than Resurrection. I've seen opposite ends of the spectrum with this movie. If you thought Halloween 2018 caused a fan divide, and it did mildly do that, it doesn't even compare to the effect that this movie had. And I do believe there are big reasons why that happened. I mean, I think they're glaring reasons. Also, I am fighting a massive freaking cold, so you can probably hear it in my voice. No, I do not have COVID. I literally tested myself the other day, so I don't have COVID. I just have a freaking massive cold, but this is fresh in my head, and I wanted to get this special out. If there's cuts in this video, it's because I'm coughing. And before we dive deep, I posted on Twitter, because I like to make you guys part of this whole thing. I said, putting together my notes for H Kills Revisited, I'd like to get you guys involved. 2 things. Tell me what you liked the most and hated the most about the movie. Gathering data for the fan divide questions. Just reading a few of these. That movie nerd, Ethan Rowe, what's up, Ethan? He says, love how Michael was in the film, brutal. I didn't like the pacing of it. Was very choppy in the second half of the movie. Just my take on it. Slasher in Suits says, the most was the kills, the return to his house, the long flashback, Dr. Loomis return, the escape of the basement. Didn't like the hospital suicide. Ending was abrupt. Extended cut was better. But have Allison find Karen or Michael is gone again something. I think he's predicting something for Ends, maybe. Sarah Lynn, she says, loved the scene where Cameron and Allison face off with Michael in the house. Hated the dialogue and the execution of the plot. So you can already tell that a lot of people have big problems with the hospital sequence in this movie. And that's a section I'm actually looking forward to getting into. And know that I am not doing this video to make you like this movie. The deed has been done. no matter what, after the end of this review, you'll understand, I guess, why I like it, but it's not going to change your mind. If you don't like this movie, you don't like this movie, no matter what. But like Grace here says, what I loved the most was Vicious Michael, the Michael we deserved. What I hated, honestly, I didn't care much for some of the dialogue. And I think most people are talking about the dialogue in the hospital scene, the evil dies tonight stuff. I'm even going to try to defend that. And I'm being serious. And a couple funny observations here. Julie, she says, I'm just mainly confused at those who will watch truly trash-tastic slashers from the 80s that complained about this movie. And you know what? If you're going into this movie for that, just crazy freaking kills, I mean, Halloween Kills, it lives up to the name. This is the most brutal Myers ever. So if you were to like shut the volume off and just watch the kills, you're probably good. And then, of course, Lindsay from Mother Mayhem, what I hated the most, all of it. What I liked the most, it ended. And I guess that's a good place to jump into the Revisited special. So diving in, this was the middle chapter in a trilogy. And I wonder if David Gordon Green knew that this was going to cause some ruckus, you know, like a fan divide. Because oftentimes middle chapters are looked at kind of in a discombobulated fashion. I guess that's the best way to put it. And you think back to like Empire Strikes Back. When Empire Strikes Back first came out, not the reception that it has today. You know, some call it like one of the greatest films ever made, you know, to a lot of people. Not saying that's going to happen with Kills, but it is a middle chapter, and oftentimes middle chapters are left open-ended, and they are the most experimental and adventurous when it comes to the story. And this movie is exactly that. This is not like any other Halloween movie before, and probably anything to come in the future. All right. So if you're looking for that Halloween movie that's just straight Michael Myers hunting prey, you know, with great kills and a big showdown between whoever the final girl is and Myers at the end, you get some of that in this movie, but they wanted to kind of have a little bit of a message in this movie. And I think that word can trigger people. People, especially these days, don't like messages in movies, okay? They feel like it's an agenda. Keep that shit out of my slasher movie. And I get that. I do get that. But I'm the type of person that I can grab onto a journey, and as long as it doesn't let me go, and I get some emotion out of it, and I'm moved along the way, then I'm willing to listen to any kind of, I hate to use the word agenda, but the message of the movie. And if the message can grab me, then so be it. That's awesome. And this movie definitely had a message about like mob mentality and what happens when people react before they think. And that specifically ties to the character of Tommy Doyle. And to be honest, guys, that middle section really had me on my toes the most. And as far as like pacing goes with this movie, this might be the fastest paced Halloween movie out of the whole bunch. Being serious, when I watched last night, not a freaking dry moment, and it flies by, like almost at too fast of a pace. And also, this is really the first movie to have like a full-fledged flashback scene. And I think that's a good part story-wise to dive into first, is the flashback. I even seen people that were so mad at this movie that they didn't like the flashback. That they said this flashback looked like it was cheaply done, didn't compare to the original. I can agree to an extent. If I compare this to the original side by side, this flashback, yeah, this looks like a different movie. It doesn't look like the original. You could almost look at this like an alternate timeline. It's not specified that it is that. There's so many different timelines in the franchise anyway, then why not? And so many timelines branched off of that first movie. This is not the first movie to do that. So you could look at this flashback like that. But David Gordon Green, his direction, it really shines the most, I think, in the flashback. Just the attention to detail, the cinematography. They tried their damnedest to make this look like something from 1978, and to me, they achieve it. It looks like something from that time period. This flashback isn't just there for like fan service. It's an integral part of the story. Lonnie gets a lot more meat in the plot, not only in this section of the franchise, but tying back to the original. Because in the original, Lonnie had really just that one, maybe two little scenes, you know, hey Lonnie, get your ass away from there. Stuff like that. And they address that in here, which is cool too. You know, Lonnie is tied right in with Lindsay and Nurse Marion, you know, in the bar scene. He was one of the people that encountered Michael Myers. But the main point of this scene was Hawkins. This is Hawkins' story, really, if you look at it. You know, Hawkins had this chance to put an end to Michael Myers altogether. And so he's faced with a situation where his partner is attacked by Myers, and he has to make a quick split decision. And in that decision, he kills his partner, which you can kind of tie to the message of the movie. He thought too quick, and sometimes you don't have a choice, you have to think quickly. But when you react too quickly, it can have disastrous results, and that's what happened. His partner died. And so after his partner died, he didn't want to be responsible for another life, and so he sees Loomis with that gun over Myers' head later, and he saves Myers' life. And that is the reason why all this is happening. And so I love that this movie answers a few questions, and another question that it answers is, was Michael after Laurie? And he tells her, no, he wasn't after you at all. He was really just trying to get back to his house. That's kind of Michael's whole thing. And also, at the end of the flashback scene, you got that freaking crane shot that's pulling back. Chill bumps every single time I watch that scene. Goes into the main titles. Now, addressing another thing about Myers, his strength in this movie, his freakish strength. We all remember the scene where he comes out of the burning house and he kills 11 first responders, firemen. That scene is probably one of the coolest damn scenes in the entire franchise. If you're looking for the visual, there's your visual. But, you know, I've seen debates like there's no way Myers would be able to take on, you know, all these people. There's no way Myers at the end of the movie would be able to get up after that beating. Do people forget that Michael Myers is not human? He doesn't have human strength. I guess let's put it that way. He is supernatural. And there's been so many debate videos put out there about, is he supernatural? And some people go back and forth with it. No, I don't think he's supernatural, but he does have like freakish strength. He's fucking supernatural. I'm sorry, he is. And they literally say that in the movie. If you pay attention, during the flashback scene, there's a moment where Hawkins' partner tells him when Myers was 6 years old, he had the strength of a grown man.
He's a 6-year-old boy with the strength of a man.
Okay, let's dive into the controversial part of this movie. Let's just go ahead and do it. Let's talk about the hospital scene. We're first introduced to Tommy Doyle in the bar. And he's given this speech about Michael Myers and what happened to him and Lindsay and Laurie on Halloween night, 1978. And it does kind of send a chill, you know. I thought that was a pretty cool scene, actually. And it's a quick way to get to know Tommy Doyle. If I had to poke at this movie a little bit, I think they should have given a little bit more backstory to where Tommy Doyle has been in the last 40 years. I think that would have been cool. And you could have done that in maybe like a scene or two, maybe even a flashback, I don't know. There was this novelization that came out of this movie, and it talked about how Tommy Doyle hasn't been in a lot of good places in the last 40 years. You know, he's pretty messed up, actually. He's had a lot of broken relationships. He even has like a thorn tattoo on his arm, which that would have been interesting if they put that in here. It's probably a good thing they didn't, though, because you don't want to tie this to 6 if it's not in the same continuity. There's a lot of nice details in that book fleshing out who Tommy Doyle is as a character. And I think if you had that stuff, then it would make the decisions that he makes throughout the rest of this movie make a lot more sense. I said make 3 times. And Tommy Doyle is probably the most perplexed and debated character in this movie. You don't know if he's supposed to be a hero. You don't know if he's supposed to be an idiot. He just is. That's really the thing for me. He was a guy that stepped up and decided to do something, you know, and that, to me, that is kind of heroic. He wanted to do the right thing and save the town of Haddonfield. And there's that nice scene where when he gets to the hospital, he sees Laurie Strode and he tells her,
because 40 years ago when I was a kid, you protected me. So tonight I'm gonna protect you.
That you protected me all those years ago, now I'm going to protect you. And I think that's the one scene that you need to let you know. This is a Tommy Doyle that has the best intentions. He wants to put an end to this. The whole evil dies tonight thing, I will admit, yes, it is a little overused, although some people have probably, exaggerated how much it's used, because when I'm watching it, and I'm being dead honest with you guys here, when I'm watching the movie, I'm not annoyed by the line that often because I'm considering the context that's used here. This is a mob mentality, Tommy Doyle, he gets to this hospital. This is pretty much...
All of you! Evil dies tonight!
A powder keg. It's like a little echo chamber. And when you have all this friction built up inside, eventually it's going to erupt. And he riles everybody up and gets everybody angry. Nobody's like asking any questions like, can we kind of stop and maybe break this down a little bit and maybe come up with a good plan? No, he's like, we need to shoot first, ask questions later. That's what he's wanting to do. And it's not the right approach. And you can actually tie this whole event back to the first movie. Tommy Doyle's doing the exact opposite thing that Dr. Loomis would do. Dr. Loomis in the first movie...
I still think I should notify the radio and television.
No. If you do that, they'll see him in every street corner. They'll look for him in every house. Just tell your men to keep their mouths shut and their eyes open.
He told Sheriff Brackett to keep everybody in their homes. Don't let anything out yet. He doesn't want to cause a panic. And that's exactly what happens in this movie. So David Gordon Green and company were paying attention to a lot of key moments in the first movie. You could make a whole movie out of this particular idea. What if you put the news out there prematurely that Myers was back, and not giving everybody the facts, like there's also another inmate that's out there. And one thing that happens when you have a leader rallying a group, you can even tie this to freaking political things that have happened over the past couple of years. When you have like a battle cry or something like that, oftentimes people do latch onto a phrase. They do start chanting a phrase over and over. I mean, I could show you clip after clip after clip of protesters chanting a certain phrase, and it could be tied to anything like women's rights. It could be tied to like taxes, political affiliations, violence, whatever. So that's exactly what happened here. It built slowly, but then eventually it erupted, and all these people were going crazy. Another big argument that I saw people getting into was about the other mental patient, Tivoli. How many people actually knew what Michael Myers looked at? Honestly, only a handful, okay? Because none of the sequels exist. All we saw was at the beginning of the movie, on the TV, they showed the two inmates, and they never showed their names, just the faces. And I believe there's even a scene where they address this, and one of the characters in the hospital states that they didn't know what he looked like or something like that. But, and also, even if you knew what Myers looked like 40 years ago, if you haven't seen him today, I don't know about you guys, but after 40 years, I've seen some people look, nice and slim and fit in their 20s, and then when they get to, their 60s, not the same result. I think people were nitpicking this particular element of the movie way too hard, because is it believable? And that's the thing with me with movies too. Suspension of disbelief. Is it believable? Could it happen? If it could, press forward. We all know what Michael Myers looks like. I get that. But in this world, in this story, nobody knows what Michael Myers looks like. Hell, even the people that knew him 40 years ago might not know what he looks like today. And they back it up because Laurie Strode's telling everybody, you fucking idiots, that's not him. So they cover their bases with every single argument. And I've literally said this, a little bit too cocky, but I've literally said I can defend every single argument you have about this movie. It doesn't mean you're going to like the movie, but I can literally defend just about every single one. But at the end of the day, does all that matter? Does it have the emotional impact that you're looking for? There's no right answer to that. For some of you, it didn't. For a lot of you, it didn't. And for some people, it did. For me, I was caught up in it. To me, it was refreshing. I've never seen this in a Halloween movie before. We have all this happening, and Myers is out there, killing other people in the most brutal fashion that I've ever witnessed. So I got my cake, and I could eat it too. But it was kind of heart-wrenching seeing this character, Tivoli. He just wanted help. He when he gets there, he's saying, help me, help me. You could almost come to the conclusion that Tivoli took his own life to try to answer the call of the mob. Evil dies tonight. In his mind, he sees himself as evil because everybody's saying it and he is mentally ill. Oh, I guess I must be evil. I'll go ahead and I'll end this. And that's what he does. You know, there's only a few people that aren't too stupid to follow the mob and actually, you know, try to do the right thing, like Karen. She's trying to talk to Tivoli and saying, it's okay. We're going to get you through this. Man, Karen, talk about a 180 for me in terms of a character, because she was probably my least favorite character in Halloween 2018. No joke. And she's easily one of my favorite characters in this movie. That just shows the power of writing, you know, the way that they took this character and gave her a lot more fat to chew on. And, you know, her, looking back at her past and how she was always in denial about, you know, the boogeyman and staying away from her mother. She was always in denial about it. And even in this movie, she's telling Allison and Laurie, let the authorities handle this, you know. And then there's that scene where Laurie tells her, the system has failed. You know, this is our problem now. Also, this movie does have some lighthearted moments to try to temper the tension a little bit with, like, say, some of the trick-or-treaters when they first encounter Big and Little John. I like those characters, but then they turn it around when they're at the playground and they're swinging and they don't realize what Myers is. They don't realize how dangerous he is. And they say, you know, he's over there. He's like poking out behind the tree. And that scene was kind of funny and lighthearted, but as soon as Lindsay and company show up, that's probably one of my favorite scenes of the movie, just because of the music that's used in it, the setup of Myers. This is probably one of my favorite directed scenes. You know, you can tell that they played around with some of the elements of the first movie, like Myers charging the back of the vehicle and coming up on the hood or the roof. No character is safe because, you know, a legacy character like Nurse Marion, when she says, this is for Dr. Loomis, and you automatically think, oh, the gun's going to go off and she's going to get a fire, you know, she's going to get shot in before she actually dies. No, the gun doesn't even go off. She's treated like any other character in the movie, and heinously. Like, he kills her, but then he hangs her up at the swing set. So those are some nice surprises here that nobody's safe. And speaking of nobody's safe, how about Cameron? This is another character that I really didn't care for in the first movie. You know, he seemed kind of douchey, but realistic. To be honest, too, if you go back and look at 2018, I think he was, to cut him some slack, in a situation that made him look bad. It didn't mean he was necessarily bad. Plus, he was just a young teenage boy. Hormones, right? Beginning of the movie, he feels horrible about what he's done. He just wants to make things right with Allison. So then he ends up joining up with Allison, and they end up in the last act of the movie. And by the way, probably one of my favorite last acts out of the entire franchise. A lot happens in that last act. And this movie just surprised me at every turn. Like, everything you think is going to happen, it goes the other direction. Cameron, he's got the gun. You think Cameron's going to save the day? Nope. Cameron is killed in one of the most violent, brutal fashions imaginable. Probably more than most characters. And watching his death was heartbreaking because at that point, we loved Cameron as a character and we wanted him to survive. He wasn't just your normal one-dimension slasher fodder. I often compare this scene to like the game Plinko. Remember Plinko from Price is Right? Yeah, and his head's just like going back and forth down the railing. But then Myers, this is a Myers that's freaking vicious and vindictive because he doesn't kill him. You know, he leaves him within an inch of death, and then he comes down looking at Allison, and then he gives him the death blow. One thing we always wanted from Halloween 2018 was, you know, Allison to step up and be a viable final girl. And she earns that here. Both her and Karen do. You know, she stands up to Myers, she's fighting tooth and nail, and then Karen comes from behind and stabs him with the pitchfork. Nice little nod to Halloween 5, by the way. You could tell that Judy Greer was so in this role. I wonder if she knew that she was going to die, right from the beginning. Like, did they tell her that? I really think she was giving it her all. Love the scene where she's holding the mask and she's, you know, saying, come and get it, motherfucker. You know, at this point, she's fed up. She's done with Myers. But the mistake she makes is that she puts her faith in Tommy Doyle and the mob. And what do? They fuck it up again. And so this is the scene where I heard some people state that there's no way Myers would get up from that beating. A normal mortal man, of course, would not get up from that beating, but this is not a normal man. Again, this is Michael Myers, and he is supernatural. To me, there's no debate to be had. That is what David Gordon Green was wanting to set up in this movie, is that this is not a normal human being. He literally says it when he was 6 years old. He had the strength of a grown man. You know, Michael has no emotion. That's what pure evil is. And at the end of the movie, when she says the true curse of Michael, Laurie Strode herself states he's not human. This was Michael Myers' movie. And I think David Gordon Green wanted to set up how dangerous he was as a character and that he was going to win no matter what. As far as which cut of the movie I prefer, I think I prefer the theatrical. I've watched the extended cut once. The ending won't really match up with a 4 years later because Laurie Strode's coming right out to get Myers at the end of that movie. But I think originally Ends was supposed to take place on the same night. And this is not the case. I prefer the theatrical cut, plus the extra scenes I don't think were really needed. But, you know, I know a lot of you guys, you probably don't care about the franchise as much, especially the ones that hated this movie. But I think I'm even more pumped for Ends now because of the unknown 4 years later. This is going to be a completely different movie than what's come before. And it's going to close out the trilogy. And yeah, I freaking loved this movie, guys. It hasn't changed. And you know me, I'm always upfront and honest with you guys. If my mind changes about a movie, I usually go right to Twitter and I let you guys know. I did a ranking on Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And like within a couple of days, my mind changed about Leatherface from 2017. So I had to go to Twitter and was like, hey guys, just want to let you guys know, Leatherface is dead last now. That movie sucks. That's just the way I am. I like to let my audience know at any given time my thoughts on a movie. And I do get wrapped up in movies and I do get impulsive about things. I'll be the first to admit I am impulsive. But this movie has stayed the course from day one. And I wasn't sure at first. I thought after everything settles, I'm probably not going to like it as much. Does this movie have problems? Yeah, I think it does have problems. I think the kill with the older couple in the beginning with the bulb, I don't think the comedy landed like I wanted it to in that scene, but we still got the great kill and how vicious Myers is, how he's just stabbing the guy in a blurred view in the background while we're looking at the woman dying. That's some pretty cold shit. But as far as like problems with the movie, there's nothing that leaps out at me and says that's really bad. Like in 2018, there were a few moments that were like, that's kind of cringeworthy. For me, nothing with Kills. You know, Kills was exhilarating. It was like a jolt of adrenaline. It was just what I wanted. I didn't even address Laurie Strode in this review. And that's fine because she wasn't really part of the movie. She had a nice moment with Hawkins there. But other than that, you know, she kind of stayed out of the picture. And that's what I wanted from this movie. And I think that might have been a problem for some people too. They wanted more Laurie Strode. You're going to get that in Ends. I'm pretty sure of it. So I'm sticking with my rating, Trapped on an Island. I love Halloween Kills. Glad I got everything out of my system for the Revisited special. And looking forward to, in just a few months, it's crazy, Halloween Ends. And I'll do the same thing with Ends. I'll give you another Revisited special probably in March or April of 2023. So anyway, guys, let me know down in the comments, has your opinion stayed the same or has it changed for Halloween Kills? Let me know. Also, be sure to come over to Killer Flicks where we talk horror all day and every day. And on Fridays, we do FIFA on Fridays. My voice is freaking dying. Follow me at Drumdums and on my socials. Support me on Patreon. Buy me a coffee. And you guys, thank you so much for watching. Have a great day. And Drumdum out.